Okay, greetings there, online biological science students. Coming to you with some instructions for exercise number 11. We're a little bit behind, but that's okay. It'll work out. It's exercise 11, and what I have posted are revised instructions, set of instructions for exercise 11. What was there previously that you had seen until today was not aligned with the second edition of the textbook, and it probably caused some of you some concern and consternation and, all the above. But anyway, we're going to get it together right now. So what you do is in your lab book, turn to page 125, okay, in your lab book, the second edition by Okudu, and then get out the instructions, open it up, print it, or just get it out so you can see it, the revised instructions, and I'm going to go over it and add some information, okay? All right, so one, it says on the instruction sheet, number one, review the learning objectives on page 125. So if you look on 125 in your lab manual, it's right here, it has learning objectives, okay, and things that you need for the lab. So you're going to review that. It says be sure to answer the pre-lab questions on pages 125 and 126. So at the bottom of that page, you have some questions, and you go over to the next page, and it has some. So you're just trying to answer those as best you can before you do the exercise. Pre-lab questions, okay? And then it has read the instructions on page 126. So if you look under the last set of questions, 3 and 4, the pre-lab questions, you'll see introduction. And as is true with anything, pay attention to the bold-faced terms. And in this case, it's gene, microevolution, Hardy-Weinberg principle, and equilibrium. Equilibrium means stability. In this case, we're looking at genes in a population, and what it says is the dominant recessive genes, will remain stable over time. That means you won't get an increase in one or the other. However, this is not true because you're going to have selection pressure, because birds and hawks eat frogs, and the frogs that are not as quick getting away, whatever genes they have, their population is going to change. A gene is a specific and unique sequence of deoxyribonucleotides, DNA, or ribonucleotides, and what it does is it codes for a protein. That means it causes something in the organism to be detectable and to behave a certain way. Good genes, bad genes, all right? And then it has microevolution. That's the evolution, short-term evolution of single species. If you look at macroevolution, it's for, say, all frogs, one species of frogs. Micro, if we consider all frogs, that whole family, then that would be macro, okay? So pay attention to that. And then it has, read carefully, and I have to change the number. It is 3, 4, and it's going to be 3. Read carefully on page 126, on 127, the Hardy-Weinberg equations, okay? So it looks a little confusing there, but really it's not. Again, there are terms, dominant, recessive, allele being alternate form of a gene. But typically we don't talk in terms of alleles, but we talk in terms of dominant and recessiveness. Homozygous, that means 2 alleles that are the same, 2 dominant or 2 recessives, and homozygous is 2, homozygous, dominant, recessive. You have 2 recessives or either 2 dominants, and a heterozygote is when you have 1 dominant and 1 recessive. So hope I didn't confuse you with that, but it kind of talks through it. And it has a procedure that's described how you do the Hardy-Weinberg. So take your time and go over pages 127 and 128. It gives an example, and then you would kind of understand it, okay? You might have to read it a couple of times, okay? Take your time. This will give you a chance to use your mathematics 103, 105, okay? It will give you a chance to use that in 151, college algebra. All right, so that's on page 127. Again, take your time and go through it, all right? And then we're going to look at, on page 128, applying the Hardy-Weinberg equation. So on the previous pages, you've learned how Hardy-Weinberg operates by looking at dominant and recessive traits. Now it's going to give you a chance to collect some data and then apply that, okay? So on page 129 are some pictures of human traits that are easy to detect, and we can use for data that'll go into tables on page 130, okay? So let's look at page 129, and it has earlobe. Do you have a hanging down earlobe like mine, or one that's attached? When you, without thinking, put your hands together, is your left thumb on top or your right? For me, it's my left thumb, okay? Tongue rolling. I can roll my tongue. I'm a tongue roller. So you found out I have a free earlobe. You can include me in your data set. I have a hitchhiker's thumb. It turns up. It's not just straight, okay? And I've told you about the thumb on top. Widow's peak, that's hard to tell. I'm bald. I didn't have a widow's peak, and I certainly don't have it now, okay? And then hair on the fingernails, I have them. Finger hair, no finger hair. I have finger hair, like right there. Okay? So I have finger hair, so you can include me in your data set. And as I say in the instructions, you're not in a classroom where there are 24 other students, and we could just put on the board, tongue roller, yes, no, this, that. You're just by yourself. So what I say is ask 10, 15 of your friends, and take that chart that's on page 129, and just make a list. Can they do it? Can they not? Okay? And that'll be your group, just like a classroom. And include me in it, okay? Because I can be part of your data set. And again, I'll tell you what I have. No widow's peak. I can roll my tongue. I have a hitchhiker's thumb. My my left thumb is on top, is more comfortable. Straight, I have a hitchhiker's thumb, and I do have hair on my fingers. So it's going to tell you the dominant recessive on page 130, okay? And you put number of students that can roll the tongue. I'm looking at the chart, table 11-1. The number that can roll their tongue. So include me in your survey yourself, and ask 10 of your friends or so, and put those numbers down. Now notice to the right it has, like tongue rolling, it has number of students, can't roll tongue, number of students. Then it has recessive and dominant. Now notice at the top it says P, dominant, the percentage, and then the other one, P, recessive. That's an error. I explained it in the instructions, but the one to the right for recessive should be Q. So it's P and Q, because without that the equation won't make sense. So what you do to get the percentage is just divide the part by the whole. So let's say the number that could roll their tongue would be 18, and the number that couldn't would be 6. So if you want to know the percentage, 18 and 6 is 24. So divide 18 by 24, and it's 3/4. And then can't roll 6, that's 1/4. And that will give you the percentages. So once you get those percentages, then you can go down to table 11.2, plug in those numbers, and then you can figure out if a person has two dominant, a dominant and recessive, or two recessives. The giveaway is whoever shows the recessive gives it away, because if you, whatever the percentage of the recessive is, just trust me on this right now. What you do is get the square root of that frequency, a percentage. It'll be 25%. Move the decimal to the right, and you get 0.25. What's the square root of 0.25? 0.5. So the frequency would be 0.5. Frequencies go, as I say in the instructions, from 0 to 1. Percentages go from 0 to 100. So if you know frequency goes from 0 to 1, and I tell you that a frequency for two things, and we need to know what it is for A and B, is 0.5, subtract 0.5 from 1, and it gives you the other 0.5. Okay? So anyway, just look over it, and it'll make sense for you. All right, on page 131, it gets into pedigree charts. Pedigree charts are useful when you're going home Thanksgiving and you're going to be with family and friends, and it's not a bad time to have a pedigree chart and find out about certain things. I mean, often biology is morbid, like who has heart condition or certain cancer or something like that. But anyway, you create a pedigree chart. So I'm not going to go into pedigree chart. It's kind of self-explanatory. And then it's going to ask you to do an analysis based on a pedigree chart. And that's in the instructions, okay? So let me just turn over. Okay, so I think that's it. Yeah, so you're going to do the pedigree charts, and then what happens is you have another couple of sections where it's kind of self-explanatory. One is on page 135, post questions. You're going to submit those. On page 134, questions about the pedigree charts. Then you would answer those. So any questions like that, you're going to write the answer and submit it. You could just write the question in Word, put your answer, save it, and then as you compile it. And we'll talk more about compiling next week. All right, and it has a section, do it yourself, writing about biology, and it just asks you questions, okay? And that's it for the exercise. So I've kept it under 10 minutes, and I'm just slightly over, and that's what I wanted to do. So I hope that helps you with this exercise 11. And work on it this week, work on it next week, and when we come back, we'll do the last exercise, is that dissection of a virtual pig. Oh, you're going to like that, okay? We could, since it's Thanksgiving, done a virtual turkey, but we won't. We'll just do the virtual pig, okay? All right, so the best to you, and follow the instructions. Take your time. I've aligned the page number so it makes more sense now. And please forgive me, okay, for not having the pages aligned. But we're going to get through this, and you are going to do okay. All right, thank you. Goodbye.